Our story these days is named Athenaise. It absolutely was written by Chopin. Athenaise went away one morning to go to her oldsters, 10 miles back on the Bon Dieu watercourse in Pelican State. She failed to come within the evening, and Cazot, her husband, was troubled. Cazot expressed his worries to his servant, Felicite, United Nations agency, served him dinner. He ate alone by the sunshine of a coal oil lamp. Felicite stood near, sort of a restless shadow, only married 2 months and he or she has her head turned already to leave. It's not right, she aforesaid. Cazot shrugged his shoulders. Felicite's opinion of his wife's behavior when 2 months of wedding failed to concern him. He was wont to being alone and failed to mind an evening or two of it. Cazot stood up and walked outside. The night was commencing to deepen and gather black round the teems of trees within the yard. Far away, he might hear the sound of somebody enjoying associate in nursing accordion. Nearby, a baby was crying. Cazot's horse was waiting, saddled. He still had abundant farm work to try to do before bedtime. He failed to have time to have faith in Athenaise. However, he felt her absence sort of a deep pain. Before he slept that night, Cazot was visited by a picture of Athenaise's pale, young face with its soft lips and sensual eyes. The wedding had been an error. He had solely to appear into her eyes to feel that, to sense her growing dislike of him. But, the wedding couldn't be undone. And he was able to create the simplest of it and expected an equivalent effort from her. These unhappy thoughts unbroken Cazot awake way into the night. The moon was shining and its pale light weight reached into the area. It absolutely was still outside, with no sound except the distant notes of the accordion. Athenaise failed to come successive day, though her husband sent a message to try to therefore through her brother, Monticlin. On the third day, Cazot readied his horse and went himself in search of her. Athenaise's oldsters, the Michis, lived in an exceedingly giant home closely held by a dealer United Nations agency lived in city. The house was way too huge for his or her use. Upstairs, the rooms were therefore giant and empty that they were used for parties. A dance at the Michi home and a plate of gentlewoman Michi's gumbo were pleasures to not be incomprehensible. Madame Michi was sitting on the structure outside the house. She stood up to greet Cazot. She was short and fat with a cheerful face. However, she was clearly tense as Cazot arrived. Monticlin was there too. However, he wasn't uneasy. He created no effort to cover his dislike of Cazot, dirty pig. He sang below his breath as Cazot climbed the steps to the structure. Monticlin dislikable Cazot for refusing to lend him cash way back. Currently that this man was his sister's husband. He dislikable him even additional. Michi and his oldest son were away. They each revered Cazot and talked extremely of him. Cazot cast hands with gentlewoman Michi. United Nations agency offered him a chair. Athenaise had shut herself in her area. You know, nothing would do last night, gentlewoman Michi same. Athenaise simply had to remain for a bit dance. The boys wouldn't let their sister leave. Cazot shrugged his shoulders to indicate he knew nothing regarding last night. Didn't Monticlin tell you we have a tendency to we're planning to keep Athenaise? She asked. However, Monticlin had told him nothing. And however concerning the night before, asked Cazot. And last night? Does one have dances each night? Madame Michi laughed and told her son to travel tell Athenaise her husband had arrived. Monticlin didn't move. You grasp further as I do this, it's no use to inform Athenaise something, aforementioned Monticlin. You and Pa are rebuke her since Mon once Athenaise aforementioned she wasn't returning to Cazot, she meant it. 2 fiery red spots rose to Cazot's cheeks. What Monticlin aforementioned was true. Upon inward home, Athenaise had declared she was there to remain. It had been troublesome for her to know why she had married. Ladies were simply expected to induce married. And he or she did like Cazot. Monticlin had asked Athenaise to clarify herself. He had asked her if Cazot abused her, or if he drank an excessive amount of no. Athenaise had aforementioned. It is simply being married that I hate. I don't like being Mrs. Cazot. I would like to be Athenaise Michi once more. I don't like living with a person, all his vesture every place and his ugly blank feet. At the time, Monticlin had been sorry his sister had no serious proof to use against Cazot, and now, there was Cazot himself wanting like he needed to hit Monticlin. Cazot stood up and went within the house to his wife's space. Athenaise, get ready, he said quietly. It is late and that we don't have time to lose. Athenaise wasn't ready for his calm request. She felt a wave of despair regarding continued to rebel against the concept of wedding. She gathered her hat and gloves. Then, she walked downstairs past her brother and mother, got on her horse and rode away. Cazot followed behind her. It was late once they reached home. Cazot yet again Greek deity dinner alone. Athenaise weekday in her space crying. Athenaise's oldsters had hoped that wedding would bring a way of responsibility therefore deeply lacking in her character. Nobody may perceive why she therefore despised her role as partner. Cazot had ne'er spoken angrily to her or referred to as her names or did not provide her everything she wished. His main offense gave the impression to be that he blue-eyed her, and Athenaise wasn't a lady to be blue-eyed against her can. At breakfast, Athenaise complained to her husband, "Why did you got to marry American state once there have been such a big amount of alternative ladies to settle on from?" she asked. "And, it's strange that if you hate my brother such a lot, why would you marry his sister? I don't recognize what any of them ought to do with it," Cazot aforementioned. "I married you as a result of I wanted you. I assume I used to be a fool to assume I may cause you to happy. I don't recognize what else to try and do however build the most effective of a nasty deal and recognize over it." It currently appeared to Athenaise that her brother was the sole friend left to her within the world. Her folks had turned from her and her friends laughed at her. However, Monticlin had an inspiration for securing his sister's freedom. When some thought, Athenaise in agreement to his arrange, the next morning, Cazot woke to search out his married woman was gone. She had packed her belongings and left within the night. Cazot felt a terrible sense of loss. It absolutely was not new. He had felt it for weeks. He had incomprehensible his likelihood for happiness. He couldn't consider adoring the other girl, and will not imagine Athenaise ever caring for him. He wrote her a letter stating that he failed to wish her back unless she came of her own discretion. Athenaise had at large to the massive town of latest Orleans. She was staying at a non-public edifice that Monticlin had chosen and paid to rent for a month. A lady named Sylvie owned the edifice and took excellent care of Athenaise. Athenaise presently became friends with adult male Gouvernail who was conjointly staying at the edifice. This friendly relationship helped her feel less lonely concerning missing her family. But Mr. Gouvernail presently began to fall loving with Athenaise. He knew she was unacquainted with, unhappy and stubborn. However, he conjointly suspected that she precious her husband, though she failed to realize it. Bitter as this belief was, he accepted it. Athenaise's last week within the town was returning to associate in nursing finish. She had not found employment and was too unhappy to remain from now on. Also, she had not been feeling well. She complained intimately concerning her illness to Sylvie. Sylvie was terribly wise, and Athenaise was terribly stupid. Sylvie terribly sedately explained to Athenaise that she was feeling sick as a result of she was pregnant. Athenaise subbatum terribly still for a protracted time puzzling over this new data. Her whole being was overcome with a wave of happiness. Then, she stood up, able to take action. She had to inform her mother. And Cazot. As she thought of him, a full new sense of life swept over her. She couldn't wait to come to him. The next day Athenaise spent move home. Once she came across Cazot's. He raised her out of the horse carriage and that they control one another tight. The country night was heat and still aside from a baby crying within the distance. "Listen, Cazot," said Athenaise. How Juliet's baby is crying. Poor darling, I wonder what is the matter with it.